Some details may seem small, but they're actually the ones that create change. Like when you think you're wearing white, but you're really wearing orange. Or coffee. Sometimes you want to feel like Cinderella. Most of the time, you want to feel like yourself. Some come in twos. Some to your rescue. Sometimes you're just looking for approval. Or some extra spruce in your life. Sometimes it's in your nature. Or from nature. Sometimes it's just that one time. Sometimes it's in the small things. And the whole things. Sometimes it's everything.
We have been planting the rice. Before you used to get 30 bucks, 40 bucks, but now you can boast of 70 or 100 bucks in a 5-acre farm. It has changed our life of our family and children.
Kwegango sasulako katono, boda mo kutiko omulundi omulala neera n'osasulako, n'ogwokusatu n'osasula, n'osobola okumalayo ebbanja eryo.
Saya bisa membandingkan pengeluaran antara pengeluaran dan pemasukan seandainya.
Il nous aide avec des intrants à crédit et nous donne aussi un prêt scolaire.
A gente aprendeu a ver previsão do tempo, ver possibilidade de chuva para nossa região e também cotação de café.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will start this event in a few minutes. Please have a seat. Thank you.
Let's fall in love with the feel of viscose. Created from Indonesia's leading natural resources, viscose, a biodegradable, high-grade fabric, grown on the rich land of Indonesia, transformed to natural viscose fiber for smoothness you can feel and a quality you can trust. Manufactured in the heart of Indonesia, made for Indonesia's tropic condition. Keeping you cool and comfortable. To help you get through the day. To be your best. Everything Indonesia, from plantation to fashion.
details may seem small, but they're actually the ones that create change. Like when you think you're wearing white, but you're really wearing orange. Or coffee. Sometimes you want to feel like Cinderella. Most of the time, you want to feel like yourself. Some come in twos, some to your rescue. Sometimes you're just looking for approval or some extra spruce in your life. Sometimes it's in your nature or from
Ladies and
nature.
gentlemen, shall we start the event? You may please have a seat. Thank you.
And the whole things. Sometimes it's everything.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Irene. I'll be your host in today's Indonesia Sustainable Fashion Conference 2022. And also, I would like to remind all of you that we are following a strict health protocol, and we also prepare some food and drinks in here, so please enjoy yourself during this session. Before we start, on behalf of Rantai Tekstil Indonesia Lestari, I would like to greet our honorable guest. Good afternoon, Bapak Arsjad Rasjid, the Chairman of KADIN Indonesia. Welcome and thank you for coming to Ibu Amalia Adininggar Widyasanti as Deputy for Economic Affairs, Ministry of National Development Planning. Good afternoon, Bapak Silverius Oscar Unggul, Vice Chairman for Environment and Forestry Indonesia. Good afternoon, Ibu Michelle Cokro Saputro, Secretary General of Indonesia Textile Association. Welcome and good afternoon, Ibu Swida Alisha Bana, CEO GCM Group. Good afternoon, Bapak Basri Kamba, the Chairman of Rantai Tekstil Lestari. Also, I would like to say hi to our special guest, Miss Henriette Furchman. How are you, Miss?
Thank you,
I'm
good.
The European Commission, First Counselor for Environment, Climate Action, Digital in UDEL, Jakarta. And also we have Miss Cindy Rhodes joining us today from thousands of kilometers away. She is the co-founder of World Circular Textile Day and founder of Worn Again Technologies. Hello, Miss Cindy, how are you? Last but not least, thank you for everyone who has already joined us today here at KADIN and from Zoom conference. Hi, everyone. Each of your presence means so much for us today here. Ladies and gentlemen, Rantai Tekstil Lestari is a non-profit association founded by 7 private sectors and 2 CSOs aiming at promoting sustainable throughout the value chain of Indonesia textile, clothing, and fashion industries. Perhaps many do not know who the founder is. The founders are Asia Pacific Fibers, Asia Pacific Rayon, Busana Apparel Group, H&M Group, PT Pan Brothers TBK, South Pacific Viscose Lansing, Sritex, IDH, and Kehati. The vision of RTL is to drive the textile, clothing, and fashion industry in Indonesia toward an inclusive and innovative collaboration and search the best solutions to improve the economic, social, and environmental sustainability. Today, from RG Lounge, Menara KADIN, RTL is hosting a very special discussion with special guests. The discussion's topic is around the challenges and opportunities that Indonesia have in order to bring up our sustainable fashion goal. Before we start, I would like to thank all of the sponsors of the event. Abundant thanks to KADIN Indonesia, Asosiasi Pertekstilan Indonesia, Busana Apparel Group, PT Asia Pacific Rayon, and PT Pan Brothers TBK. Now, without further ado, let's have an opening remark by the Chairman of RTL, Bapak Basri Kamba.
Selamat siang, Bapak Ibu semua. A very good afternoon for our distinguished guests and speakers, my friends from KADIN, executives and members of Rantai Tekstil Lestari, and all participants both online and those who join offline here at Menara KADIN in Jakarta. A very good morning for some participants and speakers joining us from the other corner of the world, like Cindy from UK, and some others. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you and welcome to our conference titled Indonesia Sustainable Fashion Conference. So first of all, on behalf of RTL or Rantai Tekstil Lestari, I'd like to thank Chariman of KADIN, Pak Arsjad Rasjid, and every speaker for the commitment to share their perspective today. Ibu Winnie from Bappenas and Henriette joining us. Supposedly, Henriette is going to join us today here offline, but she has to do it from home. And then Mbak Svida Lisabana, from CEO from GSM Group. Actually, the group is not only leading, but changing the landscape of Indonesian fashion industry. Ibu Cindy, the founder of One Again Technologies, who is also co-founder of the World Circular Textile Day. Ibu Michelle, Secretary General of Asosiasi Pertekstilan Indonesia. Also Mas Fitrian, Board of Management of Rantai Tekstil Lestari, thank you. And then the Vice Chairman of KADIN for Forestry and Environment, Silverius Oscar Unggul. He is now somewhere in Central Kalimantan with at the spot of orang utan. So hopefully he will join us to give the closing remarks shortly. And then today we are glad also to have both of our supervisor, Anya Safira, as a moderator today. Our highest also appreciations to all the sponsors for today's. Ada Asosiasi Pertekstilan Indonesia, ada Busana Apparel Group, ada Asia Pacific Rayon, dan juga Pan Brothers. Bapak Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, RTL is just 1 year old. It is launched exactly at this place some 12 months ago. It is legalized by the Ministry of Law and Human Rights and was founded by 9 parties, as mentioned earlier. So 7 private sectors and 2 not-for-profit organizations. At this time, RTL is the only association in Indonesia aiming at encouraging positive consumer behavior, promoting responsible and sustainable practices along the value chain of the country's textile products and fashion industry, fostering collaborations, and contributing in the development of capacity and knowledge in Indonesia's responsible and sustainable fashions. Today's conference is our first conference, but RTL has been engaging so many parties, including from overseas, aiming for 2 simple goals: seeking for collaborative actions and implementing pilot projects, so that the Indonesia players, textile, apparel, and fashion industry can be updated, can be enriched, and learn in order to understand, to anticipate, and at least win a share or a portion of this multi-billion sustainable fashion business. In parallel, the government, which is today represented by Ibu Winnie from Bappenas, will be able to support where the government should support, such as infrastructures, regulation, and a simple, crystal clear roadmap, let's say for 5 years or 20 years or even 50 years. Bapak Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, the global 1.3 billion fashion industry is entering a new era of sustainable and circular development and is still exploring effective paths to solve existing challenges. Some of our players may not believe this is just a fake, this is something which is absurd, but the challenges are in front of us, just like the opportunities. With an annual export value of 13 billion last year of textile industry, Indonesia is still an important textile producer and a core of the global supply chain. The reform of the circular industry chain and the circular economy practice in the global textile industry will offer both challenges and opportunities to the Indonesian players. Driven by both pressures and opportunities, Indonesia, as the players, has no option but to initiate a crystal clear pathway. If we means every single stakeholders in the supply chain, want to take a share in the new era of fashion. Today's two sessions will present the panel of 6 experts from all aspects of the fashion industry to give updates, share perspectives, and practical cases of sustainable fashion development. On behalf of everyone at Rantai Tekstil Lestari, I wish every participant a successful and fruitful meeting. We expect a follow-up from today's conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Bapak Basri Kamba, for the opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, now let's hear a tape opening remark by the Chairman of KADIN Indonesia, Bapak Arsjad Rasjid.
Yang kami hormati Ibu Amalia Adininggar Widya Santi, Deputi Bidang Ekonomi Kementerian Perencanaan Pembangunan Nasional ataupun Bappenas, Miss Henriette, First Counselor for Environment, Climate Action, Digital in EUDEL Jakarta, Miss Cindy Roets, Co-Founder World Circular Textile Day and Founder Worn Again Technologies, Bapak Silviarius Oscar Unggul, Wakil Ketua Umum Bidang Lingkungan Hidup dan Kehutanan KADIN Indonesia, Ibu Swida Alishabana, CEO Femina Group, Bapak Basri Kamba, Ketua Umum Rantai Tekstil Lestari, Bapak Jamie Kartiwa Sastra Atmaja, Ketua Asosiasi Pertekstilan Indonesia, Bapak Fitrian Ardiansyah, Ketua Yayasan Inisiatif Dagang Hijau, serta Ibu dan Bapak hadirin yang saya muliakan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Pertama-tama, saya selaku Ketua Umum Kamar Dagang dan Industri ataupun KADIN Indonesia mengucapkan selamat atas terselenggaranya Indonesia Sustainable Fashion Conference 2022. Menurut saya ini merupakan suatu acara yang sangat unik, di mana pelaku industri fashion menyandingkan inovasi dan kolaborasi untuk mengedepankan aspek keberlanjutan. Dan saya apresiasi sebesar-besarnya kepada Rantai Tekstil Lestari yang telah menginisiasi acara ini. Ibu dan Bapak yang saya hormati, kalau kita bicara tentang fashion, pembahasan ini tidak akan ada habisnya, karena bahasannya luas dan trennya sangat dinamis. Dari sisi ekonomi, industri fashion adalah salah satu kontributor utama pertumbuhan kreatif, yang mana industri ini menguasai 17% ekonomi kreatif di Indonesia. Fashion juga memiliki keterkaitan yang sangat erat dengan industri tekstil dan produk tekstil ataupun TPT, dengan kemampuan total penyerapan tenaga kerja mencapai 18,7% dari total pekerja di sektor industri manufaktur, dan juga menjadi penghasil devisa dengan nilai ekspor industri TPT menembus 13 miliar US dollar pada tahun 2021. Namun, kita jangan lupa, cepatnya tren industri fashion memiliki efek samping terhadap lingkungan. Industri fashion menyumbang 10% emisi karbon dunia. Selain itu, limbah tekstil adalah pencemar air kedua terburuk di dunia setelah limbah industri. Di Indonesia sendiri, dari 33 juta ton pakaian yang diproduksi, hampir 1 juta ton menjadi limbah yang berakhir di tempat sampah tiap tahunnya. Maka dari itu, pada kesempatan ini saya ingin menekankan betapa pentingnya aspek keberlanjutan pada industri fashion. Produk yang memiliki emisi karbon tinggi dengan bahan-bahan yang tidak ramah lingkungan tentu tidak akan menguntungkan di pasar global. Industri fashion harus berevolusi menjadi ramah lingkungan, berorientasi pada slow fashion, di mana produk memiliki daya tahan dan kualitas yang tinggi diimbangi dengan proses produksi yang beretika serta ramah lingkungan. Dan banyak best practice fashion berkelanjutan lainnya untuk diimplementasikan yang saya yakin akan dibahas pada konferensi ini. Kadin menyambut dengan tangan terbuka atas seluruh perusahaan yang ingin berkomitmen untuk dekarbonisasi dan menerapkan prinsip berkelanjutan termasuk industri tekstil dan perusahaan industri fashion. Untuk itu, Kadin telah juga mengajak industri tekstil dan fashion untuk ikut dalam inisiatif Kadin Net Zero Hub, ekosistem yang menghubungkan perusahaan ke knowledge partner, investor, dan penyedia teknologi terutama dalam aspek energi transisi dan upaya industri untuk dekarbonisasi. Akhir kata, dengan adanya acara Indonesia Sustainable Fashion Conference 2022 ini dapat mendorong aksi kolektif sektor bisnis fashion dan tekstil. Kita bergerak bersama mewujudkan target emisi net zero dan mendukung transformasi Indonesia menuju perekonomian hijau yang berkelanjutan. Terima kasih, salam sehat, salam optimis, salam sukses. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Bapak Arsjad Rasjid. The next agenda is the first panel discussion. The discussion will be led by Ibu Anya Safira, Board of Supervisor of Rantai Tekstil Lestari. Now let's please welcome Ibu Anya Safira.
Halo, selamat sore. Good afternoon, everyone. Before we start the panel session, I would like to invite Pak Basri to come forward. Let's take a picture with all the speaker, Pak. We will have 2 speakers joining online and 4 speakers joining offline. Ibu Winnie, Ibu Swida, Mas Fitrian, dan Michelle. Please come forward and let's take picture. There is no event without evidence. Hard evidence is picture. For our online participant. Almost all female panel. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Pak Basri and all speakers. I would like to steal Ibu Winnie and Ibu Swida. Please have a seat, Ibu. So friends that joining online and offline, we will start the first session this afternoon. So before I introduce you to all of our speakers, I just want to say that we will have a bit of housekeeping. So for you online participant, please make sure you are always muted. And we will record this session so we all can view it post-conference later on. If you have question, just place it in the chat. I will select few question and I will address it to the speaker. In recent years, sustainability has become a buzzword. It turns a few heads, a lot I would say. Just as consumers today are taking closer look to the food they consume and chemical they put in their body, they're also shifting their purchasing decision to create a cleaner environment and better socio-economy. These all through the pieces of fashion product they choose to wear. This movement comes from a lot of information that is publicly available around the world on most challenging issues nowadays. We have environment issues, we have socio-economic issues. Now let's zoom into our industry, the fashion industry. McKinsey research showed that the sector was responsible for some 2.1 billion even metric tons of greenhouse gases or GHG in 2018. We are already in 2022 now. So it's about 4% of the global total emission. A survey also conducted in April 2022 by McKinsey showed that more than 60% of respondents they go out, try to find a way to recycle their garment, their fashion products, and purchase product in environmentally friendly packaging. Even they care about the packaging. So this data clearly show that we have a lot of homework that we need to do, but there's also a solution that we can work on together. There is no way that we could achieve sustainable fashion without paradigm shift in the way we produce, consume, and dispose. And we could not realize this ourselves. Pak Basri in the opening mentioned that all stakeholders must involve, must contribute to a better fashion industry. So I would like to talk and discuss with different panelists how we together can, what I like to call it, fashionable solution of this global challenge. So now moving along to our discussion, I would like to introduce our panel speaker. Before that, I'm just going to check. Henriette, are you there? Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I hear you perfectly. Can you hear me?
Henriette, you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Perfect. All right. So I'm just gonna introduce Ibu Amalia Adiningrat Widyasanti, stage name Ibu Winnie, is a Deputy Minister for Economic Affairs at the Ministry of National Development Planning of the Republic of Indonesia. She obtained her PhD degree in economics from the University of Melbourne, Australia in 2005, with her thesis of inflation targeting framework in emerging economy. We also have Ibu Swida Ali Shabana, CEO of Global Creative Media, or GCM Group, a prominent lifestyle media company with a host of brands and products oriented to empowering women and creative industry. Ibu Swida is a MBA holder from Columbia University and Math and Economic Bachelor from University of Michigan. She continued promoting empowerment of others, including started the Femina Women Entrepreneurship Program with over 30,000 members of women with SME. Can I join Ibu? We also have, hi Henriette. Henriette is the first counselor for environment, climate action, and digital cooperation at the European Union delegation to Indonesia. She has been working around environment issue with the EU more than 10 years. You name it, from water, smart city, to clean energy and climate. She holds a master's degree of science in chemical and environmental engineering from the Technical University of Copenhagen. So now that we have a bit of background of three of our panel speakers today, I would like to start with Ibu Winnie. Ibu, the government committed to implement circular economy as an economic model to optimize resources, right, Bu? So this is the way going forward. But what actually is government commitment around circular economy? Please, Bu.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. A very good afternoon for all of you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, before I come into the question, I would like just to present a bit about what is the direction of Indonesia future development agenda. What I would like to share with you now is hopefully that you can see the,
yes, but
so everyone can see that one,
yeah.
Right? First of all, that we have an aspiration that Indonesia have to, next slide please, that Indonesia need to be a high income economy before 2045. So in this context, that Indonesia only have 23 years to go. We don't have enough, we don't have a lot of time anymore, and 23 years to graduate from middle income economy to high income economy is not that much. If we refer to the other countries and how long does it take to graduate from middle income country to a high income economy, it usually takes 30 years, even 27 years. And the fastest one is South Korea. Korea can graduate from middle income country to high income country just within around 17 to 20 years. And so meaning that 23 years we have to transform, and we do have a lot of reforms, and we call it in Bappenas is economic transformation. So without economic transformation, then we have to forget about it. But if we do and commit it to implement the economic transformation, then other countries says we can do it. As we are based, I mean, like we refer to South Korea that they can do it with a strong and committed transformation strategy. So with that, I would like to introduce to all of you that now Bappenas is preparing the economic transformation agenda. If you look at the next slide, please. This is actually the strategy of Indonesia economic transformation. We have 6 strategies for that. Strategy number 1 is competitive human resources. We call it, this is a human capital development. Then the second strategy is that economic productivity, where industrialization is a part of it and the core of the economic productivity. So Pak Basri came to our event, Indonesia Development Forum, and the title of the forum is the new industrialization paradigm for Indonesia's economic transformation, meaning that when we are talking about industrialization, then it has to be a new paradigm of industrialization. And we put it into strategy number 2 because industrialization is actually the backbone to increase economic productivity of Indonesia. If Indonesia would like to grow stronger and faster for a long time, then the economic theory suggests that the country has to improve the economic productivity. Without increasing the productivity, we cannot get growing for a long time. We cannot have a long-term growth that can bring a country into a high level of economic development. So meaning that what I would like to, this is an important forum, I believe, Pak Basri, that we have to get the same mindset and the same page. Industrialization is a must for Indonesia to be able to graduate from middle income country to high income country. Another question is that what kind of industrialization that we have to pursue? The new paradigm of industrialization is a must. We cannot go just for conventional industrialization, but we have to get into the new paradigm of industrialization or industrialization agenda. So strategy number 3 is green economy. Green economy is actually the new trend that we have also to really apply and implement in our economy. And strategy number 4 is digital transformation. Number 5 is the domestic economic integration, that Indonesia have to be a economic powerhouse because Indonesia is a big country, but we cannot just disaggregate it, but we have to put it into one domestic economic integration. And the last strategy is that urbanization and the new capital city. That new capital city is not only about moving the government services from Jakarta to East Kalimantan, but in our master plan of new capital city, that moving capital city is also to create a new economic super hub in that area surrounding the capital city. Then in the central part of Indonesia, there will be a new economic activities, not only a new economic activities, but also a new economic super hub. And we already have a master plan for the 6 clusters of economy that will be developed in East Kalimantan. Okay, next slide. So why are we really concerned about industrialization, ladies and gentlemen? What we are now facing is that the share of manufacturing industry to the GDP of Indonesia is now decreasing. The latest figure, the latest data from BPS saying that the share of manufacturing industry to Indonesian GDP is only 18.3%, which is less than 20%. But actually, if we would like to go into industrialized countries, that we have to achieve more than 25%, even 30%, our ambition is. And the implication of the decreasing the share of industry to GDP, then the labor movement, usually when the country is in the transitioning process, labor will move from agriculture sector to manufacturing sectors, right? But because of the share of manufacturing is decreasing, that is not happen in Indonesia. Labor moving from agricultural to services sector, not to the manufacturing sector, because manufacturing sector cannot create new jobs, cannot create a lot of employment. And then labor, that's why from this graph, labor moving from agricultural sector to services sector, where services sector, the productivity is still low, right? If we have a study in Bappenas in 2018, if you want to increase the productivity of employment, labor productivity have to be increased, then labor have to move from agricultural to manufacturing sector. So that, the manufacturing sector is the place where labor can improve the productivity. If the productivity of labor is improved because of manufacturing sector can provide it, then at the end, if we aggregate it into the national level, it will increase the national productivity and it can create the economic growth. So this is the importance of why industrialization is a must for Indonesia in the near future. We cannot wait until the next 10 years, that we have to start from now. Next slide. I will not talk about this data because you know much better than me, and you are the industries that really know why China now is the winner in the global market. 20 years ago, the share of China in the global market, especially for textile and clothing industry, is only 15.2%. In the next 20 years, it can double up into 33.7% market share for textile and clothing in the global market. So in only 20 years, China can double their share in the global market. So why is that? Because of manufacturing industry in China is quite massive. Next slide. Next slide. How many minutes that I have now?
3 Bu.
3 minutes. Okay then. So what I would like to underline here is that first you have to go into industrialization, and the second one is that when we are talking about priority sectors for industrialization, and textile and fashion industry is one of the priority sector to be pushed forward in the near future to be able to grow faster, but we have to align with the new trend in the global market. So we have to respond to it. What is the trend in the global market? Ibu from H&M, you know much better than me. If I go shopping in H&M, and then I can see that 96% of the material is recycled, right? And 70%, even like there is like many tag, what do you call it? The name tag, hang tag. And then the hang tag is that how many percent of that materials, that the clothes that we are going to buy is recycled from the recycled material. This is the new trend. When consumer buy that product, we feel that we contribute to the sustainability of our work. So that is the consumer feeling. So, and the consumer now is really like to have the recycled materials, to have something related to sustainability. Even my children are always asking, how can we contribute to the sustainable development goals from the house, from our house? So I think the future is there. The future is sustainability actions, because in SDGs 2030 agenda is only less than 1 decade. And during the G20, there also a call for action. We call it a decade of actions. So meaning that people is now trying to move faster to sustainability. So in this context, then circular textile and product sustainable products is the key if you would like to compete in the textile industries in the world. So with that, Ibu, because I only have 1 minute left, and probably the last slide. This is what what we would like to appreciate. H&M and Danone Aqua launched the latest collection of children's clothing under the Bottle to Fashion. Is that correct, Ibu? Yeah. So this is the Bottle to Action program. The clothes are made from the used bottles. Thank you for that, Ibu. It's very innovative. And then Mycotech Lab is a biotech company that focuses on developing sustainable materials based on mushrooms. And Asia Pacific Rayon, Pak Basri, we also really appreciate that we produce renewable and biodegradable viscose rayon. And you already have a good brand for sustainable rayon anyway. The last slide, if I would like to suggest, because Bappenas is now preparing and finalizing the economic transformation agenda. And we know that the economic impact of the implementing circular economy in the textile industry will be very good. Slide number 10, please. Slide number 10. So slide number 10. 10, yes. So if this one, if I could mention that the impact of implementing a circular economy in textile industry will be contributing to the economic growth. There is an exercise on it. So we are not that. If we push the industry to go to sustainability, then it will create growth. So it will contribute to the economic transformation agenda. And my last slide on the number 12. Because Bappenas is now preparing the long-term development plan right now, and we are now finalizing what I said. Slide number 12, please. 12. Before, thank you. Yes. And then I would like to also invite and welcome collaboration with industry, with Bappenas, because we are now in the process of finalizing the economic transformation roadmap, and we also now preparing the long-term development plan for Indonesia 2045. It will be stipulated probably in 2024 by law, because it have to be a law, undang-undang. And for this, we would like to invite collaboration with industry. Why don't we work together to prepare the master plan on sustainable textile and fashion in Indonesia? If we have that master plan, and then it will be a good start and a good foundation for us to implement it, and Bappenas can put it into our official document of Indonesian development planning document. So I think we open for collaboration, and this is also the case that we collaborate with digital industry and also with aerospace industry. Then the master plan already been launched last week, and then it will be an official document soon. And why don't we make it for master plan on sustainable fashion and textile in Indonesia? I'll stop there and thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, Ibu Winnie. it's nice to know that it's somewhere in government plan. So it's how we can collaborate together, supporting Bapanas in this case to really create this, what you call master plan. But I also highlight what you said about global trend, what the consumer wants, right, Bu? How then, yes, it's clear that we need to move to industrialization to ensure that growth that we wanted. But it's also clear that industrialization also needs to be in a corridor of, you know, green economy and circularity. So on global trend, Henriette, you there? Can you hear me okay? Hear us okay?
Yes,
I would like
hear
to
you perfectly. Thank you.
go to you first before Ibu Swida.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, I hear you.
Henriette, you're still on mute.
No.
Oh, no, all right. Okay, we can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah. On global trend, I am aware, and I think most of people that is joining here aware that there is a new set of you know, draft or plan EU policy around circular economy and, you know, low emission kind of production. Can you enlighten us a bit here on that
Yes.
different kind of you know, regulation in pipeline?
Absolutely. I have a presentation also. I don't know if it can be put on screen.
Yes, in a moment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, first of all, so then I can just say thank you very much for somebody saying, can we get soft file presentation? I already sent it, so it should be somewhere. Otherwise, I can share my own screen if you think it's better.
Yeah, it's working now. Can you see it from your end? We can see it here.
I cannot.
Okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
Right.
I will just say which slide I'm talking about. Okay, now I can see it. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm really sorry that I couldn't come in person. I had really looked forward to actually meeting you and be there in person, but unfortunately, we had a number of COVID cases in the office today, so I thought it's better that I stay here. So, but anyway, you can already go to the next slide. So actually, I'm really happy with everything that I have already heard, because I think both the introductory remarks and also the presentation we just heard now from Bapanas, it goes really very nicely hand in hand with what the thoughts that we are having currently in the European Union. So as you say, we have a lot of policy developments ongoing. There's a European Green Deal that you may all have heard about, which came a few years back. There is the Circular Economy Action Plan that came out just in this year, earlier in this year in March, and where textiles really has a very strong role. So you can see in this slide, so the whole aim, of course, is to make a more sustainable product policy framework, and to make sure that we attack the issue of problems in all phases of the product life cycle. So from the design to the production, use, and also when it turns into waste, which is the circular economy thinking. So we have identified a number of priority areas similar to what has also been done here in Indonesia. So it's what we call key value chains that you can see here: electronics and ICT, batteries, packaging, plastics, and textile, and then also construction and building, and food and water, and so on. So really, we are looking into now how can we attack all of the issues related to this. So you can see some of the headings that are here: making circular economy work for people, making much more emphasis on the link between circular economy and climate action. I've seen numbers that show that actually our products are accountable for up to 30% of climate emissions, which is something that I think is very often overlooked. also looking into economic incentives and financial incentives, how we can build this into the economy, how we can make sure that there's enough investments and research and so on. So really looking at all the issues at the same time. So of course, the reason for this is, as you can see here on this slide, that in, that one, thank you, that in the European Union, the consumption of textile has the 4th highest impact on the environment and climate change, and it's only coming after food, housing, and mobility. So again, I think this is something that is very often overlooked. First of all, really the sequencing of where the environment and climate impact come from, but also how important textiles are in this context. Another important issue is that according to our studies, only 1% of the material that is used to produce clothing is recycled. So it's really the textile business in the EU and globally is very, very far from circularity. It's really a completely linear model so far. About 5.8 million tons of textiles are thrown away every year, and that is equivalent to 11 kilo, more than 11 kilo per person. So 11 kilo of textile we are throwing away each year. And I think in other parts of the world, it might be even more. So you can see that it's really an important point. And also it's very important, what we also heard in the previous presentation, the consumers are really asking for us to do something about this. So in Europe, 9 out of 10 consumers think that we should design clothes that are lasting longer, are more sustainable overall. So some of the opportunities that this gives us is to really make sure that the whole ecosystem around textiles is very resilient. Also to make sure that, I mean, we're talking here about fashion, so to make sure that it's not seen as a kind of a secondary products that are sustainable, but that it's really that we are really building on attractiveness and creativity and so on. And also, I would like to reflect on what I heard just before, that actually we have studied that an average of 20 to 35 jobs are created for every 1,000 tons of textiles that are collected for reuse. For example, for selling them, but also for refabrication and so on. So there is a really strong link between environment, climate, and job and growth in this circumstances. So I think that's really something that is also very well worth noticing. So then, if we look at this, the European Union strategy, so the main actions that are included are, as I said, it's really about supporting the entire life, or looking at the entire life cycle of textile products, and making sure that we create a whole ecosystem around this green and also digital transition, because digital can be a really strong supporting factor, as we also heard in the previous presentation. So we are going to come forward with new design requirements for textiles. So we have the Eco Design for Sustainable Products regulation that has come out, and this is setting some mandatory minimum requirements for inclusion of recycled fibers into textile, also for making, as I mentioned, textiles longer lasting, making them easier to repair and recycle. So all the things that we also know from other product categories, but that we have so far not looked so much into for textiles. There will also be a specific ban on the destruction of unsold products. So this is something that has been actually a quite big problem in Europe and probably also elsewhere, that unsold products are simply being destroyed without ever being even put to use, and this will be banned. There's also something that's very central in the new legislation, which is related to a clearer information, and we are proposing something we call a digital product passport, which gives mandatory and very clear information for consumers so that they know, for example, issues related to circularity and environmental and climate aspects of the products that they buy, because this is something that the consumers are looking for. There will also be a strengthened control on greenwashing to make sure that that the claims that companies are making are actually based on real data. And then there will be also an action related to the unintentional release of microplastics from textiles, which is also, as you are well aware, a really, really big problem. So next slide, please. Oops. Sorry, it's a little bit difficult for me to see the slides, but it's okay. So we are also looking into some what we call enabling conditions for this change of the value chain and creation of sustainable value chain for textiles. So we are launching something we call a transition pathway, which is similar to a strategy. Yeah, thank you very much. Now it's much bigger. And we're also looking at what we can do to drive what you see here, drive fast fashion out of fashion, and really incentivizing circular business model, making sure that we create a level playing field and making sure that there's a well-functioning internal market. As you know, the European Union is an internal market, so we have to ensure that this is harmonized across the European Union. Also, we will be focusing on enhancing skills, on research and innovation, as I said, and really see what we can set up a whole system of actions for promoting sustainable textile value chains. So next slide, please. Yes, so coming to the conclusion of my presentation, of course, the reason why it's interesting to be here is that this has an obvious, very strong global dimension, and we are really keen to work with our partner countries such as Indonesia and others on these issues. So we have also in the European Union come forward with a legislation on corporate sustainability due diligence, which came forward in February this year, and which also is very important for the international aspects of the textile value chains, maybe not so much here in Indonesia, but definitely in other of our partner countries. And what this proposal aims to do is that it really tries to foster sustainable and responsible corporate behavior, making sure that companies are preventing and mitigating adverse impact of their production on human rights, on child labor and exploitation of workers and so on. So this is another important aspect of the textile value chain globally. Then also, as I mentioned, this digital product passport, so making sure that we can much better have information available for the consumers on how the products, which kind of environmental and climate impact the products have, and really just to conclude, I think it's fair to say that circular economy is one of our key priorities for cooperation with our partner countries. So it's extremely important, as we also saw in the previous presentation, for the implementation of the SDG, in particular the SDG 12 on sustainable production and consumption. And we really also wish to step up cooperation with countries on this. And we also want to step up cooperation with businesses, which is why I'm really happy to be here today. Also, the final aspect is that the EU is pushing very strongly for this to be dealt with also in the global cooperation fora. So we will continue to pursue the circular economy agenda in G7 and in G20. I think it was already very well reflected in Indonesia's G20 presidency, and we think that that is a really, really good development and something that we will keep pushing for in future G20 presidencies. We are also very strong supporters on the Global Alliance for Circular Economy and Resource Efficiency, GASERA it's called, and we have been discussing with Indonesian government counterpart whether it would be interesting also for Indonesia to join this this alliance, and I really hope that it will in the future. And then also we will be in the future advocating more strongly to have a kind of a sustainable consumption and production forum across the globe, where where we will be able to discuss these things and share experiences in much more detail. So thank you very much for listening to me, and again, I apologize for not being with you in person.
Thanks, Hendrik. Yes. So from your explanation, there will be set in a short future a binding and non-binding kind of guidelines or regulation by the EU. What would be the consequences, let's say for the binding one, not fulfilling that requirement, considering I'm not talking on behalf of H&M only, but European Union countries are one of our target export market for this industry. So it's very important for us to really cope up with the demand from the EU side, for example. So what would be the consequences, if you can share? Andret?
Oh, sorry, I was muted, I think. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. No, thank you very much. So, I mean, as you say, there will be a number of binding, more or less binding, more or less voluntary instrument, and I mean, ultimately, what it comes down to is, whether we can place things on the market or not. So, for example, this product passport will be something that will be mandatory for a number of product categories, and so, this will be a requirement for putting things on the European market. So, in that sense, yeah, the consequences will be big. In a similar way, I mean, so for example, I mentioned the issue of around microplastics. So it's something that, that will have huge consequences in terms of market access, or I mean, that we will need to deal with in terms of ensuring market access. So I would say that there's a very strong push for sustainability, and there's also, I mean, a lot of opportunities for us to really work together on this.
Thank you, Hendrik. I will now go to Ibu Swida. Government perspective on circular economy, and then from European Union perspective, but from you as the one that really talking about sustainable fashion for quite some years, Ibu, how do you see it, and what is actually competitive edge of Indonesia to be in that, part of sustainable fashion industry and the journey ahead?
Actually, thanks to you. Presentation was very nice and very comprehensive. Yes. So to answer your question, sustainability is a journey, and we could see it whether that is from a big player such as H&M or the APR itself, Asia Pacific Rayon, that everyone has its own journey. So is fashion designers. And not to forget, Indonesia is a country with an unlimited wealth, from Sumatra to Flores to Rote to Timor, unlimited wealth of weaving cultures, natural organic dyes, spinning from kapok in the backyard. So looking at the landscape of Indonesia is so diverse, unlike we look at Europe. And the beauty of this is that how we can make the whole ecosystem, from the big industry, from the Ikatan Rantai Lestari to the SMEs, to the weavers in the rural, come all together. I saw that there is also a garment industry in your society, and actually that should be up, guy. How we can take from the avals, from the garment industry, giving a new cycle of life by working with the weavers. So the possibility is unlimited in Indonesia. And probably that's why you love working for H&M and Indonesia. And so this, Andrea had mentioned about the key value chains of textiles. That's so rhyme in Indonesia because we are open for possibility for the closed circular economy on textile. But what we need is how to mitigate from people to do greenwashing, because it's a yin and yang. There are plenty of opportunities, but of course it is a more expensive solution than something that is directly produced from a factory. And so how we can regulate this and giving incentives to that, appreciating the whole system to create a new life. And that is something that maybe the government also needs to take or involve immediately. And this would prevent from greenwashing. And I love the idea of the creativity and attractiveness. We just had Jakarta Fashion Week. We also just had Jakarta Muslim Fashion Week, where we take a lot of the issues of bringing up, promoting the culture, the cultivating culture and skills from the rurals and bringing to the modern fashion industry. And that needs translation by fashion designers or sometimes by fashion technologists. And this is where, let's say, I saw, I remember Toton with Fashion Republic from London. Toton was a fellow there. And then when he entered, it's like, why? I'm not so much into fashion sustainability. Lo and behold, he did not realize that what he did by cultivating embroidery in Garut and taking the next generation to adopt the classic, the old methods with the new life, that is also sustainability. And then the question may be to the government, how we can incentivize this to happen more, whether that's in Garut, whether that's in Sumatra, whether that's in NTT, how we can incentivize the youngsters to work on the tradition and maintain the tradition, but bring it to modernity. That is a sustainability too. How are we going to label that in digital product passport? So that's a lot of questions involved just from listen all this. Yes, there is a trial in Mycotech lab, for example, and that still need a long way from Mycotech into industrialization of the textile or the leatherette made of mushroom. But in the meantime, in front of us, there are a lot of opportunities where we can merge between the big industry with the small, medium enterprises. That's where we can meet together. Maybe am I answering your question? Yes. Okay.
Ibu, I like the perspective that you bring in inclusive, sustainable fashion, right?
Yes.
We're talking about big player, medium player, but also SME. And also there is industry that focus on exporting, but also those who focus on serving local market,
Yes.
right? How do you think we can, let's say you're talking about how we can cope up with the digital passport, right? So it's all about traceability and transparency. How can we showcase to our customer the whole full information of the products? So we say no to greenwashing. How do you see it will, we can tackle it in Indonesia, I would say. We're talking about from Sumatra to eastern part of Indonesia. A lot of, handicraft, designer, and so on and so forth. How can they be inside this flow of traceability and transparency, I would say? How big is the challenge, and how do you think we can tackle it together?
Yes, that's the answer. Together.
Together.
This is about collaboration of all the fashion stakeholders. No one can solve it just oneself or just one organization. It takes API, it takes APGAI, it takes KADIN, it takes RTL, it takes, of course, Bapenas to put all this together. And digital product passport is about traceability from the very right. But then, can there be auditor in pelosok desa Bena in dekat in NTT in Flores? So I don't know who can audit that. That comes from the plant behind. That comes from the mengkudu di kebon. And what is the score if someone is using everything from the backyard or someone is taking organic dye from somewhere else? I would say the score is the same. Because it's about the productivity of using all organics.
Thank you so much. Ibu, Bu Winnie, one question to you, if I may. What support that the government needs to create that roadmap that we all have been waiting for, Ibu?
Yeah, of course, collaboration is the key because government is not the players. We don't know actually what is needed by the market straight away. I mean directly, and what is the challenges is facing by the industry. So, but the government role is to facilitate, right, to make it happen. So meaning that if I can invite to collaborate to make a master plan together, that will be a great collaboration. Then we can make it concrete later on in the future. So, and this is the critical time, I think, for the textile industry now to revitalize, and we have to come into to the new paradigm of textile industry in Indonesia. Go green and go sustainable and go to the ones that we need for Indonesia's future.
Thank you so much, Ibu. Bu Winnie, thank you very much. Yes. Ibu Winnie have to go now for other engagement. So we will have photo, Bu. Photo together or just with me? Okay. Thank you so much, Ibu Winnie. Looking forward to meet with you again and to realize and to support Bapenas in co-creating that roadmap. Yes. Belum Ibu, kita masih di sini. Masih panjang perjalanan kita. Ya. Bu Winnie, terima kasih banyak. I think we can continue, ya. Before we continue with Henriette and Ibu Swida, I just wanna call Pak Vinet Jain. Hai Pak. Beliau adalah General Manager for Product Development for Busana Apparel Group. Committee, can you hand in microphone to Pak Vinet? Pak, I have one question to you. How do you see sustainable fashion as current market demand? Based on your experience, would it be sustainable as it called? Or it's just a trend that will slowly disappear as another fashion cycle?
So, hi everybody. So as I see, can you hear me?
No. Can someone help with the, yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. So if I see there are three parts of your question. The first part is how do we see the sustainable fashion as it is right now? So there are many facets of sustainable fashion as we see right now. There are many approaches, many paths that people are taking to address the sustainable fashion. As one of them, Ibu just said, that it's a domestic market, the natural way. There are other ways which industry is taking. We're focusing on more on the raw material and focusing on decarbonization of the industry. So those are the different facets of sustainable fashion which are being addressed and done right now. Now, the second part of your question is it sustainable as it is? Yes, it can be sustainable, or it is sustainable, and it will remain sustainable as long as all of us create products that do not create unnecessary or harmful impacts in the other parts, or maybe throughout the life cycle of the product. So if we all together can do that, then yes, the industry will remain sustainable, or the way we are seeing the product being sustainable, it will remain sustainable. And the third part of the question, sorry, what is the third part you said?
Do you see this as just a temporary trend, or do you think this is going to be our future?
So definitely it is not a temporary trend. There are a lot of signs for that. In fact, it is becoming a trend which is driving other fashion trends. So it is a trend which is going to remain, which is a long-term trend. And there are a lot of signs of that we can see, like the European Green Deal, and the European EU is taking a lot of initiatives. US is taking a lot of initiatives in this direction. Circular economy related initiatives are being taken across the globe. There are a lot of regulatory reforms which are being done. And apart from that, even in the reporting standards, basically the combining sustainable reporting with financial reporting is another sign that sustainability is something which is there to remain, and it's going to be the new norm of creating product.
Thanks a lot for your insight, Pa. Henriette, question, I want to come back to you. You're saying about the EU policy and regulation impact is quite significant, I would say severe, right? Is there any plan of support from the EU to their important sourcing countries, in this case, for example, Indonesia, to level up to meet the requirement? If we're talking about eco-design, you're talking about the due diligence as well. It's very wide and very deep, right? So can you share a little bit on that?
Yes, thank you very much. So indeed, we would really welcome a cooperation. Can you hear me? Okay, good. So we really welcome and hope for a very strong cooperation with our partner countries such as Indonesia on these issues. So we have actually been working closely together on circular economy for quite some time. We have supported Bapenas in developing the strategy and so on. And as I mentioned, it is a key priority for the EU to work with Indonesia on this issue. So we hope that that will be possible also in the future. And I think today can be kind of a kickoff for this kind of cooperation, where we can also look much more strongly at textiles. I mean, we have discussed earlier also with colleagues from KADIN to have conferences together and to at least start the cooperation in a soft manner. But also, I think as we go further, there will be also different technical cooperation opportunities and different ways that we can work together. We can share our experts, so we can share. We've worked on this for a long time, also in other countries, so we can share experiences, from other countries that we've worked with, and all the things that we are developing in the EU, so that we don't all have to start from scratch. So so there will be definitely lots of opportunities, and hopefully at some point soon we can sit together in a room and try to identify what would be the best way to go forward.
Thank you. Great to hear that from you, and hopefully when we will have that kind of assistancy, To level up, it also will touch our SME. Yeah, Bu Swida. So it's a just and accelerate journey for all of us in this industry. Now, Ibu, we're talking about sustainability as a journey. What would be a key component to accelerate that journey, Ibu? Looking at our landscape in Indonesia.
One easy one is collaboration. When we can instigate more collaborations from KADIN, from this room, to the SMEs, or the SMEs getting the opportunity and also appreciating what they do is actually part of sustainability. That is one. That is two. And third, the big industry, I mean, the textile industry, the garment industry that was mentioned about okay, how can we be appreciated of reducing the carbon by installing solar panels, for example, by reducing the distance between the factories, etc., etc. There are also a lot of initiatives by the big factories to reduce carbon emissions. So there are a lot of things that we can look at 360 by every stakeholders, that we are all together to reduce carbon emissions and for sustainability.
Thank you, Bu. Clearly, collaboration. And then we need to work on how to showcase the sustainability efforts of that piece of fashion product.
Yes. And to add to that, that's where we need the government to interfere, because we want to prevent from greenwashing.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Henriette clearly mentioned about that as well. All right, now we are entering to a Q&A session. Before we go to the question from online participant, Ibu, let's hear it from participant that comes. Okay, go on, Pak.
Hi, my name is Vishnu. I work with Indorama. I was reading a report about 2 weeks back. This particular report came from China, so I need to cross-check the validity of this particular report. But this report clearly says, pertaining to textiles, pertaining to recycling, pertaining to this collection of plastic bottles, and from the plastic bottles you convert it into yarns, and from yarns to a fabric. So this is a recycled product which everybody is asking for. Most companies ask for recycled product. But this particular report from China says the carbon emission of a recycled product is 10 times that of a virgin product. So I'm just wondering whether what we are doing is counterproductive or sustainable. Thank you.
To whom you address? The EU, right? Henriette? Yes. What? Okay. All right.
Thanks.
Henriette, are you clear with the question?
Yes. Yes. Thank you
Go
very
on.
much. I think this was a really important question, and actually it goes also hand in hand with the issue around greenwashing that I was saying before. And also, so what I would really like to mention in this context is, I was mentioning about this digital product passports, and this is really an attempt to avoid this particular kind of situation. So we need to know that what we are doing actually is reducing the emissions or the other environmental consequences as we are wanting. So I think we have seen that, you know, with quite a number of examples over time. I remember in a particular case of my own, there was one of the places I worked, there was this you know, feeling of let's try to save resources. So they took away the hand towel, you know, with paper hand towel in order to save paper. And then they installed electric hand dryers with a lot of metal and a lot of energy consumption and so on and so on. And of course, this is a difficult way to collaborate or to compare, because you're ultimately you are comparing apples and pears. So what is worse, paper that may or may not have come from recycled paper, and electricity for production of electric hand dryers. So it's just an example to say that it's very difficult to actually see through this, and as a consumer you definitely cannot. So that's why we feel that this digital passports can be really helpful, both that we actually know what are the numbers, what is really associated with these changes that we're trying to do, but also to really give that information to consumers so that people can make these choices that they say in the surveys that they want to make.
Thank you, Henriette. Ibu Svida, we have one question addressed to you from our online participant. If I'm not wrong, it's Leah Catalea. The question is about traditional textile. Many parts of government offices facilitate trade fair and exhibition during or after the pandemics, but most of them are for conventional garment industry. He's come, I think, from Ampu brand name. The pandemic is actually an opportunity for taking sustainability as a priority. Any advice from you, Ibu? I think to support local farmer and artisan designer.
Yeah. I would not say just per se of the local artisans. Again, this is the whole Indonesia. I think we need to realize the waste we do, the things that we support is we need to support the whole ecosystem to create this fashion sustainability. And as for the question is the advice from me of, is it how the government to facilitate? I really think that the traditional crafts, we all need to work together, and sometimes, honestly, when I see the traditional crafts, it needs to also be to takes to the modernity. We cannot just stay the design as it is. We cannot stay the purpose as just a sarong. We need to make it relevant to our modern life, how we can cut it to dress, because otherwise how many sarong can you have? So sometimes in this industry, we need to make it relevant to what we are now. For example, also embroidery. I just talked to Zoe from APR, how we can bring the embroidery that always just for the scarves, for making the stola, for making the selendang, how that can be relevant to our modern wardrobe. Because otherwise, if it is just selendangnya orang Padang, then we can only have one or two. But that selendang is so beautiful as a piece of dress, if it is on the piece of dress. And if we can bring up the craftsman, also regeneration to the younger one, that is a sustainability. Again, how can we measure this in terms of digital product passport when it comes to regeneration of craftsmen? Then another question.
Thanks a lot, Ibu. I don't see any question at this point. So thank you so much, Ibu Svida. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Henriette, for calling in. I hope you are well and you can listen our discussion quite well. Thank you so much, Ibu, and looking forward to the roadmap work with Bapenas later on. I will hand it over to MC. See you in 10 minutes time.
Thank you, Ibu Anya Safira. For Ibu Svida, maybe you can please stay at front, because I would like to invite Bapak Yuda from RTL to give token of appreciation for the first session of panelists. Thank you, Ibu Svida and also Bapak Yuda. And I will give to Ibu Sanya Safira to continue for the second session.
Okay, it's me again. I hope everyone's still listening in. I thought there is 5 minutes break for the moderator, but yeah. Anyway, so I would like to continue the second session. There will be 3 speakers for this panel session as well. I would like to call Mas Fitrian. Mas Fitrian Mas Fitrian Ardian Shah is a global envoy for natural-based solution and country director for Indonesia and Malaysia IDH, the sustainable trade, with more than 25 years working experience in the field of environmental, economic, and natural resource management, sustainable supply chain, green investment, as well as climate change and energy. He also serving as member of Board of Management for Rantai Tekstil Lestari, or RTL. Graduated from Australian National University and Institute Teknologi Bandung. So welcome, Mas Fitrian. I will call Michelle. Hello, Michelle. She's the CEO of Adan Liris Group. So if you're familiar with major, minor, batik, and what else? One more? Everyday. She's the woman behind this brand. She's also the General Secretary of API, Indonesian Textile Association. Holds a Bachelor of Art in International Business Administration and International Communication from American University of Paris. Over the years, she received many recognition in the area of young women leader and sustainability. We also have one more speaker joining online, Cindy Rhodes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. I'll be joining by video shortly. Good to see you.
All right, Cindy. So Cindy began her career as a filmmaker in music video and documentary, which over time evolved into a deep interest in the impact of commerce and global economics on society and the environment. She's an ardent advocate of textile circularity, a thought leader of a regular public speaker, including at McKinsey's Fashion and Luxury Roundtable at COP26 and at the Financial Times Climate Capital. She's a co-founder of the RE Fashion Award, the world's first sustainable fashion award, and more recently a co-founder of World Circular Textile Day. Cindy, do you have any slide you want to present?
I do. You should have them there.
Yes, we are preparing that.
Great.
Please start whenever you're ready.
Oh, okay, great. If you could get the slide deck up, that would be great. Fantastic. And thank you so much for the invitation to join today. I'm sorry I can't be there today, but already I'm enjoying the conversation and many interesting questions. So to get started, so as mentioned in my intro, I'm the founder of Worn Again Technologies and the co-founder of World Circular Textiles Day. And I have a couple of slides on both Worn Again and WCTD, the short name, and looking forward to getting into the questions and answers. So I've been asked today to share my perspective on some of the challenges and opportunities around moving to a circular textiles industry. And I hope that this will be relevant to many of you joining today, wherever you are on your circularity journey. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I always like to start with a broad definition of circularity, starting at the top here with products and services. This is all about keeping products as products for as long as possible, reuse, rental, repair services. And then moving down to material circularity on the bottom right, when products can no longer be used as products, they get broken down to become new fiber through mechanical and chemical recycling processes. And then last but not least, the people strand, which relates to the people making and handling our textiles, making sure they are valued and supported in an equitable, just, and resilient society. Now, for today's conversation, oops, if you could go back, please. There we go. Thanks. Almost done. For today's conversation, I'd like to focus on the materials recycling strand of circularity, where there are still huge challenges to overcome, but also huge opportunities on the horizon. Next slide, please. Many of you are aware of these big facts and figures. This is where we are today as an industry. Starting on the left here, we're producing extremely high volumes of all types of fiber to make textiles. We've highlighted here the polyester, cotton, and cellulosics, as these are what we're interested in at Worn Again. Then moving through to the right, we see demand is going up every year quite dramatically. And then the third column here, we have the 92 million tons of textiles going to landfill and incineration every year, which is quite shocking. Essentially, we're throwing away almost as much as we're making every year. And then on the far right there, we have the less than 1% of post-use textiles becoming new textiles. And this is the problem that we started out with at Worn Again over 15 years ago. We started researching the challenges with textile-to-textile recycling and found that the two main barriers with existing recycling methods were, firstly, not being able to remove the dyes, the contaminants, and everything that goes into production from the raw materials. And then secondly, the inability with existing methods to separate blended materials. And that's where we started. So if we go to the next slide. Thank you. Back in 2012 at Worn Again, we started the development of this process. It's a solvent-based polymer recycling process, which is able to take in pure polyester and polycotton blends with up to 5% other materials. The textiles get introduced on the left-hand side into the process, which is able to separate the polyester and the cotton. We can also separate the dyes and contaminants, and we recycle the solvents in both cases with polyester and cotton. And on the right-hand side, you can see the two outputs from this process are a polyester pellet, PET resin, which is the same chemical makeup as you would get from virgin polyester. And then from the cotton on the bottom strand here, we're able to dissolve the cotton, recapture the cellulosic pulp, or in a powder form, which both of these outputs can then go back into supply chains, back into fiber spinning to become new textiles again. And our goals with the technology, first and foremost, high quality outputs, virgin competitive, comparable in terms of quality. Secondly, the environmental benefits have to be better than virgin. And that was an interesting question earlier from the participant from Indorama, and mentioning that report from China. I really would like to challenge that and understand what information and data was used for that report, because for all of the chemical recycling technologies that we know of that are in development, that are working towards commercialization, it really is a goal to outperform virgin in terms of environmental benefits. So I think there's a long way to go in that space. We need to look at standardizing LCAs so that people understand what it is they're reading when it comes to that reporting around the environmental impacts, but definitely that is a big goal. And then thirdly, huge on our aims is to be cost competitive. We don't want to produce a process or create a process that produces expensive outputs that become a niche product. We really want this technology to enable the industry to start replacing the use of virgin resources. So, slide 5. I'd like to move on to the topic of feedstock. Now, this is the most important topic for recyclers beyond the technology. We need to understand where we're going to get all of our feedstock in the future. And both post-consumer and post-industrial textiles are potential feedstock into our process. As a business, though, we've been focusing on the potential in Europe, UK, and North America for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because there is quite a huge demand for recycling solutions that can handle post-consumer recycling. And secondly, is that in these areas, we do have relatively well-developed collection systems and infrastructure for post-consumer clothing. As well, you heard earlier, we have EU legislation coming into play, which will help support a real transition for post-consumer textiles collection and sorting. Now, even though we have this infrastructure for collection, it doesn't always equate to high collection rates. If we see here on the left, the global average for collected textiles volume is around 25%. But this varies quite a lot per region. In the UK, we're collecting at about 70%. But if you compare that to the US, collection rates are only around 15%. So really high volumes of post-use textiles still going to landfill and incineration. And then in the middle column here, this illustrates the breakdown of what's in an average ton of collected textiles. If you go to a standard sorting facility in the UK, in Europe, in the US, you'll find that about half of what gets collected is suitable for reuse. It can be resold in the reuse markets. But about half of it is non-rewearable, which goes into downcycling, into furniture stuffing, industrial wipers, insulation, that sort of thing. And then about 10% is still just has absolutely no use. And then on the right-hand side here, what we found after multiple sorting trials using NIR scanning is that quite a significant proportion of what ends up in a ton of collected textiles, once all textiles have been mixed together in a big global pool, we found that there's quite a high percentage of pure poly and polycotton blend. And that is suitable feedstock for Warren Again's process, with the rest being pure cotton, cotton rich, and other materials like nylon, wool, silk, and others. And so this is relating to post-consumer textiles, but of course, Indonesia has a high volume of manufacturing waste. And there are different challenges for collecting and processing here for post-industrial versus post-consumer, but there's also many similarities. And I understand Reverse Resources, an organization, is doing a lot of work in this area with manufacturers in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Indonesia, and also concentrating on post-consumer and bringing these worlds together. So really hugely valuable work, linking the producers with the recyclers to support the building of a circular economy for textile waste or textile resources. Next slide, please. You can go through the transitions here. Yes. So collection, sorting, and recycling processes are all important if we want to achieve materials circularity. And looking at this slide here, I won't go through all the steps, but starting from the top right, we're in the middle here, the production supply chain going through to use, to collection. We also see that once textiles are collected, the rewearables get pulled out for reuse, which is the highest value as well as environmental benefits. Now, in the bottom right-hand side, or across the bottom strand here, this is the area where we see a huge amount of innovation being needed when it comes to post-consumer textiles, because today the majority of post-consumer are sorted manually. And for economies like the UK, it's just too expensive to do this manual sorting close to the source of collection. So a lot of our end-of-use textiles are being exported for sorting. And for chemical recycling, we want to see our plants located close to the source of collection. So we need to start moving to automated systems that can sort and separate post-consumer textiles and focusing on the non-rewearable grades. We want to see these sorted in highly automated systems by fiber composition, in some cases for mechanical recycling by color. We're also going to need textiles to be cut, cleaned of all the buttons, zips, and trims to meet the feedstock specifications for the different types of mechanical and chemical recycling processes. And we've seen hotspots for these advanced sorting technologies and systems in the Netherlands, in Sweden, and in Spain. And advanced sorting systems definitely will go hand in hand with the scaling of mechanical and chemical recycling processes, especially for post-consumer textiles. And we see legislation supporting this also being super helpful in terms of advancing and accelerating circularity. Slide 7, please. There we go. Thank you. So this is a snapshot of where we're at today. We've recently announced a demonstration plant in Switzerland following a finance raise earlier this year. And we will be focusing on this demonstration plant in 2023, 2024, where we will be building a small-scale industrial version of the process, bringing together partners along the bottom here. You can see across the circularity system to collaborate. And we will be optimizing the process for the industrial scale plant, which we aim to start developing in 2025 onwards. And our business model for the technology is based on licensing. So the technology will be licensed to plant operators around the world. And we have a vision of 40 plants operating at around 50,000 tons per year by 2040. Next slide, please. So switching gears, I'd like to share a little bit about World Circular Textiles Day. After working and developing Worn Again for the past 15 years, I have been so encouraged to see the momentum around circularity. And this is an initiative that we co-founded along with Circle Economy in the Netherlands and University Arts London back in 2020. Next slide, please. So by 2020, circularity had finally taken hold, but we felt that there was still a real need to celebrate circularity in a positive light, and also to galvanize the collective activities that were happening around circularity. We also felt there was a need to look to the future and to imagine what true circularity could look like for textiles, to provide a sense of hope, enthusiasm, and encouragement to bring the industry together, and also to hold the industry to account. So every year on October 8th, we hold a 2-hour in-person and virtual event where we look back, we report on the progress over the last year, highlighting what's been happening, who's been doing what, And we also look to the immediate future to understand where we're at as an industry and where we need to be focusing. And when we launched back in 2020, we made a prediction that it's going to take about 3 decades to get from where we're at, which is a broken linear system, to a fully circular system. And if you'd like to see more about this, have a look at our website. We talk about the 3 phases of circularity. But in reality, we are still just at the very beginning of circularity. There's still a long way to go. A lot of collaboration is needed. We need to look at roadmaps, individual, by country, as an industry. And just as you're doing in Indonesia now, collectively we can get there. And hopefully this will be sooner than 2050. Next slide, please. So far, there are over 160 signatories with World Circular Textiles Day who span across the entire circular value chain, from collection and reuse and recovery, recycling, production, brands and retailers, to facilitating organizations. And the knowledge and the scope of our network and industries is quite immense. And we'd like to invite all of you, if you haven't joined yet, it's free. Please do sign up, become a signatory, and join the global efforts here. Next slide, please. So in closing, I'd like to highlight 5 key focus areas, which I believe we need the most attention on right now. So collaboration and strategic partners, you'll hear this time and time again, no one can do it on their own. Infrastructure for collection, sorting, and pre-processing. If we want to move to material circularity, this is at the core of what needs to happen in the coming years. Implementing recycling solutions at scale. We need to see mechanical and chemical recycling scale up and replicate as quickly as possible. And then national strategies together with policy underpinning the investment and the scaling up. And last but not least, engaging the user. We need to see consumers actively engaged in circularity and making sure that they get their materials back into the system. Otherwise, they end up lost to the system, to landfill and incineration. We really want to engage consumers on what's possible, what's on the horizon, and how important their role is in a circular future. And on that note, I will say thank you. On to the next slide.
Thank you, Cindy. It's very interesting you mentioned about technology. I mean, I think many of our local designers here joining us offline or online. So we all know that when we're talking about circular economy or circular fashion, it starts from designing, right? Designing phase. How you design a durable products, how you choose a material that is durable, recyclable, many things you need to consider. Start from the beginning, start from the designing step. Then, if it's outworn and it cannot be used any longer, then recycling is what we will focusing on. But it's, I would say, the last resort on that circularity journey. So Cindy, thank you. I will come back to you again, but here I just want to discuss with Michelle. From association, from API side, how do you see the Indonesian textile community in terms of readiness to be, you know, at the center of this sustainable fashion realm, I would say? How ready we are?
I think in some sense that most factories are progressing, but of course they are in different stages. You know, some of the factories are already, you know, financially how to say, manage to invest on, you know, the latest technologies, even just to update their machineries, to be able to save water, electricity. That's already, you know, a start. But of course, there are still many of manufacturers that are still very behind on this progress. And of course, the government has, all these years have helped us by providing, for example, like tax-free when we imported new machineries and all that. So, answering to your questions, I think just based on for the economic reason, they need to upgrade their machineries, to, of course, it getting more expensive if you use too, you waste too much dye stuff, chemicals, water, it gets very, especially electricity, it gets very expensive. So, they have to anyway upgrade their machineries. And of course, looking at last presentations, many of the machine suppliers like Rieter or, those things, they are also, because they aim, they also have their sustainability targets. So in that sense, they automatically, will offer us as a producer the upgraded and more efficient machineries. And so in that sense we are progressing, but of course how far each company gets, it really depends on their financial status. But also I think one of the major challenge that we also have is the infrastructure. Many of our factories are still using coal for our energy, and that's also a challenge because especially for Central Java and in my knowledge some West Java area are still not the infrastructure for gas or different kind of energy resources are still not like the pipeline is still not ready yet. So for example, in my area, the pipeline's still not there. So in that sense, like I think we need some kind of government support, even if we want to change, for example, like from coal to different, like gas, for example, like we still cannot do it. I mean,
make sure you mention it when we were invited by Bapanas for the roadmap, yeah?
Yeah, gas, I mean, gas, yeah. Gas itu berarti apa?
Natural gas.
Natural gas, yeah. I'm sorry, I don't want to make it sound like it's a gasoline. No, it's a natural gas. So we need that support for the infrastructure. And then we also have, mentioned it to the government that we need, because like I think Bu Swida said, like Indonesia has a really rich culture where there are a lot of small, medium artisans, and most of them still don't have the wastewater management. So we also need the support. We have mentioned this, API has mentioned this to the government. We need to build, like a shared kind of wastewater management. For example,
communal, yeah?
Communal, yeah.
IPAL.
For example, like in the area of my company, in Solo area, there are a few batik villages, kampung batik. We need those kind of communal wastewater management in those so they can still, how to say, maintain the cultural, develop their culture, heritage, and but still being sustainable. So I think those two are really important moving forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. Understood about technology that is quite costly, and then also infrastructure.
Yes.
To make sure that transition is inclusive for big, medium, and small players, right? We're talking about common ETP, the effluent treatment plant, or IPAL, and maybe options to move away from coal, for example. But what about mindset?
Yeah.
What about the mindset of Indonesian textile community? As they understand that the demand is going that way, or they still say it's still far away from us, just business as usual?
I think in a sense, just to let everybody know, API is not only, like the big manufacturer. Many of API members also come from small, medium, communities. So, many of us actually really hype about this sustainable thing. Like, I think everybody wants to, contribute in a sense, right? And especially even for the businessmen or businesswomen, we know we need to save just for the economic reasons. We better save if we want to stay, like competitive in the market, right? But again, sometimes people just don't know where to start. Sometimes we are not educated enough, for example. So I think what the other panelists say about collaborations, I think it should involve education. For example, like I think Bu Swida talked about Jakarta Fashion Week. We had a how to say, not like a slot, kind of like a session where, for example, like APR, collaborated with a few designers, a few brands, having that fashion show there. It also is not only for the brands, but it's also show the audience that as the industry, like from a manufacturer like APR, collaborate with like designers, like local designers, collaborate, of course, with Jakarta Fashion Week, and then together, right, we educate that, hey, sustainability is a real thing, like you can make fabulous clothes, and it's possible. So I think, just the media, from the academic, like last week, I was with, I think it's a forecasting trend, color trend forecasting from ITB, Institut Teknologi Bandung, and then also collaborating with APSIFI from the Fiber Association, and with API, we're there and, educating for a lot of students from colleges, universities in around Central Java area, and of course from the factories also. So we talk about how actually even from color forecasting, if you can forecast it like early on, you can actually save, for example, like buying dyestuff chemical. You can actually save a lot of your product waste, for example, because you can accurately project what will be sold in the market, what the customer might want, and for next season or 2 seasons to come. So this kind of educations, that collaborative actions are really needed. And I think the more that we do this, the more from small, medium artisans to big manufacturers, we can learn together and move forward together.
Great that you mentioned about consumer demand, right? Mas Fitrian, how important is consumer demand? If we're talking about sustainable fashion, we're talking about from producer side, from regulator side, but actually the one that really drive the supply demand is the consumer. Please, Mas Fitrian.
Thank you, Anya. Thank you for having me. I would start by saying I think we have to understand and identify at least 3 or 4 important actors that can drive positively the sustainability or circular economy. And when it comes to the textile and apparel sectors, I think we have seen so many challenges just now, but also with challenges, there are opportunities that we can create. 4 actors that need to work together. Of course, market demand is important, but market demand cannot drive anything without the involvement, commitment of the suppliers. And as Michelle said correctly, suppliers themselves can be distinguished with different categories. I mean, first-tier suppliers, the big ones, second-tier supplier, the small, medium enterprises, the local factories, the local suppliers, so many different facets related to that. So we have also to understand their need, their challenges, their capacity, and so on. And in addition to these 2, I think both of you also said correctly the importance of the regulatory framework or the government. But one of the things that we haven't heard up to now is the finance. You can ask for anything, even business as usual, like you just mentioned, the current factory needs to be upgraded and so on. The new challenges would require new investment, new factories perhaps to be adjusted, or even build new ones, changing the old one. We learn from, for instance, like in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, and others, when there were demands related to the change of labor, let's say, safeguards and conditions related to the factories. They have to build new ones, or they have to adjust, the existing one. It requires investment. I think the biggest challenge is to link this when it comes to the demand coming from the market. What sort of demand? Because we also need to understand different market requires different demand. I think the collaborations led by RTL, Rantai Tekstil Lestari, would be so crucial also to clarify which market that we are targeting. There are plenty of things that are required by you, for instance, H&M, by others, for instance. I think we need also to prioritize things. And also, if we take into account different markets like in Asia and also domestic markets, there are also stepwise approach to do that. I think we have to also agree the foundations so that we have the level of the same level of playing field. What is the requirement? First, from the law, like water, we shouldn't use or contribute from our factories the effluent that is not standardized or is not meeting the standard required by the law. Carbon emissions, we heard about that. And I think it will be so crucial if RTL with Bappenas and others have that kind of discussion. What sort of carbon emission that we are targeting? I think 2 years ago, we had this kind of separate discussions about boilers and factories. Renewable energy is key, but how can we realize that? In the case of B20 and G20 recently, there is huge pledge coming from different countries, including from the US, linking to the Indonesia, about providing $20 billion of investment for renewable energy. That's a good pledge. The biggest question of all, the biggest challenge of all, how can this be translated into really on-the-ground type of investment, and then transforming the factories, transforming the supply chains, transforming the all the processes related to the producing of textile apparels and what have you. I don't know whether I have already answered to you, but I want to quote something that from the beginning of my childhood really was inside my head and still, which is the quote coming from Kermit the Frog. Kermit the Frog said, "It's not easy being green." So it's not philosophical, of course, but it requires a lot of understanding, a lot of partnership. Partnership is so easy to say. It's like sustainability. But most of the time we got trapped into discussing it without realizing it. What we need to do right now, yes, I really support the idea of pushing this roadmap with the Bappenas, with the government. But I think Pak Basri and others, we have to also see whether we can realize some pilot business models with different partners of RTL and also other partners. But this pilot need to be prioritized or selected that can lead to scalability that the previous analyst mentions, because scalability would be key to address huge challenges of all, which is the textile waste, the carbon emission reductions, the water, and of course, we haven't mentioned or discussed about social impacts or social inclusions. Now, there are two priorities now. One is addressing the existing challenges. We have already seen landfills fulfilled with so many different ways, including from textile and apparel sectors, but also the future challenges, like you just mentioned, design. I think 3 components with that kind of things: design, sourcing material, and also engaging with users. I talk so much, but
Thank you.
Over to you. Thank you.
Mas Fitrian, hold your mic. Now that you opened another Pandora box, social aspect, we're talking about sustainable fashion, we immediately link it to recycled material,
Exactly.
to lower emission, decarbonization, what else? Design for circularity, let's say, but social part is, I don't know, less sexy nowadays, or maybe because it's already stable before environment issue. I don't know, but I just want to hear your thought around that.
I think if you talk to many consumers, excluding me, I'm not that kind of fashionista.
Still, you're a consumer.
I've been to several different expos as well as discussions related to consumers of fashions in Indonesia, also especially in this region. The first immediate reactions when it comes to sustainability is about whether they can contribute back to the local and social community or local community or social inclusions type of things. Most of the time they forget about workers. This is something that I think we need to be able to work with so many different partners to educate ourselves and also the consumers that workers are important, their rights, their opportunities to get similar access to different workers in different sectors. But I think we can start from, I think Ibu Swida mentions about connecting it with the suppliers. Many suppliers are MSME, was it micro, small, medium enterprises? They also are the key to the many livelihoods of rural and urban areas, or rural and urban economic activities. And I think if we can find, again, a business model, piloting it with the second tier suppliers, macro, small, medium enterprises, you get two things. You get security of supply, but also you can contribute further to the livelihood of these households. And if we learn from plastic and different type of waste management, we are not yet successful, of course, in Indonesia, but I've seen that it has created also the movement, but also a business model that regenerate economic activities at this local level. I think if we can connect environment and social aspect, that can be a good win for the textile and apparel industry. Many different aspects related to social, local community and also workers are not easy, of course, to address because it will lead to legal implications and what have you. I wouldn't comment on that. I think many are quite having better expertise on this, but I think understanding the need, understanding the aspirations of our workers, of our suppliers would be key. At the end of the day, in my view, the biggest assets of all, not only apparel and textile industry, are people. Thank you.
You're correctly said. And even Henriette from the EU delegation mentioned about the due diligence, the upcoming due diligence. It covers environment and social. So we need to gear up and then make ourselves informed with the standard.
If I may, just to respond to Henriette and also perhaps provide some suggestions, just learning from different sectors. Many standards coming from Europe or from Northern America or even from Asia, sometimes they're good at that level, but the translations can get lost. Because when it comes to social inclusions, social aspect or social impacts, this really depend on local and social and cultural setting. One of the key, let's say, meaningful aspect that we have to understand is whether we can also understand those social and cultural setting. Many sectors in Indonesia are being criticized for the use of child labor. It's quite fair, but also we have to understand, like for instance, farmers in the field, sometimes they have to bring their family. Yeah, this is part of social safety net as well as cultural setting. But what we have to find ways is to work with these farmers, to work with the suppliers, to work with these kind of social groups, whether this is accepted. If not, what will be the options? Sometimes the easiest way is, of course, to cut the supply, and as a result, we don't provide any solution, and as a result as well, this would lead to another problem. So I think we have to work on that. Thank you.
Yeah, the least that we want is a empty shelf in the Europe, right? Okay, so we need to work together, north and south, and something in between, in the middle part, how to bridge this new policy, new requirement that coming our way. Cindy, I hope you're still there. I have one question related to technology. You said, and then you shared about technology to split the material, right? Polymer recycling, if I'm correct. Any other technology that is out there, a new technology that will help and enable and accelerate circularity, you were mentioned about sorting mechanism, a collection mechanism that currently is still more or less is manual, which then it will take quite some time to do it. We need to move things fast. So I think digitalization and make those process become normal part of industry is very important. Can you enlighten us new technology around that area or even in other recycling journey, if there's any?
Sure, sure. No, I think that point about digitalization as a layer across everything, when we look at redesigning our flows of materials once textiles and products are no longer reusable and they go into the non-rewearable grades and go into mechanical and chemical recycling, we're going to require that kind of traceability and understanding of where we're sending our textiles. And I think we have a huge opportunity with circularity to really tackle some of that. When it comes to new technologies, certainly for materials recycling, mechanical recycling has been around for a long time, but it's starting to get a resurgence. There's a lot more attention and activity in India and in Europe, Portugal, Spain. So there's a resurgence there. But in terms of new chemical recycling or molecular recycling, there's a whole handful of new processes that are going to be able to deal with hopefully all or most of the main fibers that we're using. They're going to get a lot more sophisticated when it comes to being able to deal with blends. But again, like you were saying, you know, we need to link this with design, and that's one of the interesting angles. I mean, when we started out 10 years ago developing this technology, there was no discussion about designing for circularity. So the fact that the industry has evolved now to say and to recognize this is what's needed at the beginning, that will make it so much easier when it comes to recycling and breaking things back down again. It will make it more efficient. It will produce higher yields so that we can recapture more of those raw materials and get them back into circulation. So in terms of new technologies, I think they're all coming together at different times. You know, chemical recycling, yes, that takes has a long development timeline. But as soon as we start getting these plants up and running, like you've seen with Renewcell in Sweden, and APR is doing textile to cellulose over there, you know, CIRC in the US, we have polyester recycling, a lot happening, developments in Europe. As these plants are up and running, we're going to see a very quick curve where the capabilities are going to go from that 1% quite rapidly to much higher. And it's going to take a good couple of years to and investment to build those plants, to really scale them up. And then on top of it, having that layer of digitalization, so we can track materials, where the industry can see where their products have gone, where they've turned into materials, how they've come back into their supply chains. It's kind of it's a whole new world when it comes to the textile industry, when it comes to circularity. So I think it will happen quickly, but in spurts, as new innovations come to market.
Thanks, Cindy. Do we have a question from the audience that joined us in Menara KADIN this afternoon? You can address your question in Bahasa and English. If no, I will just check on the online first. I think we have one question. I think it's for Michelle, is it? Yeah. What's that? The role of API and other organization. So you're saying that, if I can recap this, mostly the focus are in big companies, but you also mentioned that API members is not only the big companies, right? You also have even MSME, as Mas Fitrian mentioned. So maybe how to be a member of API and what kind of education, training, and activity that will be arranged by API for its member.
Yeah, so actually there are few programs, for example, like from the government, they have kind of competition for like a design competition, and they talk about sustainability is one of the criteria. In that sense, they have mentoring sessions. I was one of the judge back then, so of course the brands will will talk to us, and then also I believe that they are like more like a badan kreatif, some kind of like in a few regional from perindustrian, from perdagangan. You can also contact that. But to be specific, for example, in my company, we work with designers. We work with designers because I saw that the one who questioned from a brand. So we work with designers, and actually we help them to develop the fibers. And sometimes the designer also, well, I want to do something sustainable, but I don't know where to start, for example. And because my factory is from yarn to garment, and we can source from APR, for example, or like, a PCI cotton or USCTP, for example, the latest one. We can also, with lancing and all those, like sustainable fibers, we can actually give them, that source. We can help them develop. Another one is what we do is we recycle from our yarn waste, like cotton waste from our yarn production, and then we respin it, and we actually yarn dyed it, and then so we can manage the chemical waste, and then we actually send this recycled yarn to lurik artisans, where they also employ the lansia, like our elderly people, and we actually paid double for the lansia, and then we paid double also for the finished fabrics, and we use it for our brand. And we also can supply this to different brands. So it's not only recycle or like sustainable in terms of the fiber, because we reuse, recycle our waste, but it also, talking about the social impact, we also employ those, we have employed, for example, like not only the lansia, but also the disabled community. We also recycled from the fabric side to become like a homeware, the home goods, and we 100% export them. So it's economically possible, but it's also recycle. Like using a recycled material. We also do a social impacted different communities, and we of course. Me personally, I'm open to different brands to collaborate. We have collaborated with different designers. For example, the one that have showed their clothes in APR, for example, like they are produced by us. So also different, fiber. So yeah, in terms of API, again, like what we did with APSIFI last time about forecasting trends and everything, we continue to educate through different kind of theme. I believe today's session is also part of the education, method that we do. So yeah, please welcome to contact me anytime from the brand to talk further about the collaboration.
Yeah, I think I want to connect Ira from Agra brand. Yeah. She also asking about, I would like to have a response from you and Mas Fitrian, talking about education for youngster.
Yeah.
Student or, next generation of us, they are not well
educated,
aware and educated about the whole sustainability.
Actually, many fashion schools have started this, and because I was sometimes they would invited me, and so we have this kind of sessions. But if you come from a non-fashion school,
exactly,
then there's no education for that, right?
Let's say it from this perspective. It's not a school for a designer, but just normal SMA, in Jakarta or wherever they are. But so what to choose, what to wear, how to contribute if we're talking about SDGs or sustainable fashion, for example. So it's no now, and if it's no, then what can we contribute, like API or in this case RTL as well, Mas Fitrian?
Please.
Thank you. This question is so much relevant, to me, a younger generation. So. Now you have to be as young as possible to answer this because the challenge is so high. So I think in many respects, sustainability is so challenging word to understand. Not only for common or normal students or common people, laymen or something like that, but even for the experts, because there are plenty of aspects related to sustainability. What I feel, or what I think needs to be done, is to make or to create a program that is straightforward as possible, but as fun as possible as well. I think in this room, I've seen like so much creativity involved. I mean, Ibu Svida, for instance, in the beginning, you, Michelle, comparing to me, Anya as well. So I think if we can target with key messages, one or two, that this would then be repeated from time to time, like a selection of clothes. What sort of clothes? I mean, what it means about durability, what it means about recyclability or whatever. Something that along that line would be so important to be understood by everyone. I think, again, comparing us to the plastic sector, for instance, it would be straightforward. We can learn from one of my friends, like Tiza Mafira. Diet kantong plastic, straightforward. Diet kantong plastic, straightforward. So what we need to find is the right jargon, the right buzzword, the right narratives, as simple as possible to be then transferred and shared with the students. And since I'm not like a designer or something, what we can also encourage other students to get involved is the fact that to make such clothes, there are plenty of contribution coming from different fields and different disciplines, like from ITB or from the technical or engineering backgrounds. You can think about the process, the systemic change, the green process, and so on. From the design, of course, is straightforward. From the marketing, we can also get or encourage students and others to join us in this kind of endeavor to find ways to communicate and market sustainable product or green products that then can be, let's say, bought easily by the consumer. So plenty of things. Maybe RTL, KADIN, API can work together to have whatever sayembara or whatever, reach out or outreach and so on. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think for like if you want to start a brand, for example, like and you come from like a SMA umum or SMA umum and itu, like you can start by starting with, for example, I know Bu Swida has the LPM like lomba perancang mode, or I believe the APR has some like workshop and for the designers to come in and just to get used to their fabrics, and you can start from there. What's accessible for you? I know Bazaar Indonesia has like a next gen award where you can just familiarize yourself with what they have, and also some schools have their free sessions or Zoom sessions for talking about sustainability. So just look for those events and familiarize yourself with that and asking questions, and whether they can then not adopt you, but like, giving you more mentoring sessions in that sense. Or because I think when you reach out to API, then usually it's more like a formal kind of settings. But if you're like really starting out, just a designer, I think it'll be difficult for you. But I believe like if you're starting, you want to start your brand, start from those kind of like, like what he said about, starting with sayembara or like lomba or something. So, but I believe that many schools have this kind of sessions already, like APR and sometimes like Buswidas, GCM. We have many sessions about that. So yeah, just reach out to, different medias, different events. And it's a good start from there.
Yeah. Well, looking forward to more RTL role in this area, Mas Fitrian, to educate Pak Basri also how to educate our young generation. Because I just want to highlight that when we're talking about sustainable fashion, it's not always about production, right? It's also about behavior. It's about consumption pattern. You're consciously consume sustainable product, for example. It's also important. I just want to point one thing before I'm going to close this session. When you purchase a fashion product, have you looked into the inside part of your garment or fashion products? It's on the right side or left side. It's called a care label, ladies and gentlemen. There is information about the material and how you need how to wash it. Is it cold water, warm water? So basically, how you treated your garment that you purchase online or offline in the store, you bring it back. Yeah, you put it on your cupboard, and then when you wear it, and then how to wash it. So it's there. It's also have a environment impact, emission impact. Think about that. Have you ever seen that? So that small information is actually a way to educate yourself on your, I would say, conscious consumption. So I just want to close this session, and together with the first session, it's a collaborative work. We see a lot of homework, but only through collaboration we can tackle it and make sure that Indonesian ecosystem is ready for a global competition. So thank you very much, Mas Fitrian, Michelle, and Cindy. I'll see you soon in another RTL event. So now I'll give it back to MC. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you Ibu Anya Safira. For the panelists, please stay at front, Bapak Fitri and also Ibu Michelle. And I would like to invite Bapak Vinet from Busana Apparel Group to give a token of appreciation for the second session of panelists. Please. Okay, thank you Bapak Vinet and also Ibu Michelle and Bapak Fitrian. And what a very enthusiastic and fruitful afternoon we had today. I believe that all the panelists here have their own way to keep supporting sustainable fashion in Indonesia. To end our event today, I would like to invite Bapak Basri Kamba as Chairman of RTL to give the closing remarks, please.
Thank you again for everyone, including those with us still online. Actually, the one who's supposed to close this conference today is actually the Wakil Ketua Umum, the Vice Chairman of KADIN, but is still away in Central Kalimantan, cannot reach him, but then he's just said, please take over. Okay. So, and then I have a lot of, notes for all the speakers on the two sessions. But first of all, I agree. And we at RTL are very lucky to have this, our logo. We are not living, again, talking about sustainable fashion is complex, but we are not living on the Sesame Street with Kermit the Frog. So, of course, it's not being easy to be green, right? But this actually is about circularity. The blue one is actually about, we are not local, we are going to globally, it's blue. And the green one is actually about environment. And this one is about the orange color, is about energy. So be positive. I know that, Cindy and Henriette, thank you again for all the advice, the suggestions. But then for us, number one, it's not easy. I agree. But again, RTL has been more than 1 year already. I think 14 months. You're already, after being launched. But still, if you look at our YouTube, our subscriber is only 2% at the moment, right? So please give us applause. So the topic is very complex. It's not easy. But we are fortunate today. We have at least, I think, 5 or 6 representatives from the school fashions, right? We have LaSalle, we have Ivi, we have Maranatha, we have from IKJ, and who else? So I think they will pass on all this message, all these discussions together today to their students, because they should take over again all these homeworks. But with us at the industry, we promise, number one, we are going, to try to be, to have the very most important thing is actually the, what do you call it, for us is a master plan, right, about this textile. Indonesia at the moment has the master plan for the circular economy. But if you go details, we don't have it yet. So everyone talking about sustainable fashions, they go on the left, somebody go to the right, and then talking about the circular fashions, talking about the, halal fashion. There's nothing, somebody has already built the path. So we are lucky today that Ibu Winnie from Bappenas committed to support us to establish a master plan. And then with a very bold message from Pak Fitrian talking about funding. Yes, funding. Funding, but if you wait, which one that we need? Is it a master plan or funding? So, but we heard from European Commissions, from Henriette, and also from Cindy, that the technology is there, the commitment is there. So ladies and gentlemen, I close this one. So we hope that soon, 2023, we can have the master plan of the textile industry, which include the sustainable fashion. Thank you again, and see you in the next conference.
Thank you, Bapak Basri Kamba, for the closing remarks. Once again, on behalf of RTL, I would like to thank our sponsor today, KADIN Indonesia, Busana Apparel Group, Asosiasi Pertekstilan Indonesia, PT Asia Pacific Rayon, and PT Pan Brothers Tbk. Also, thank you to all the panelists, and not to mention our honorable participants for your time and attention to this event. Let's together hope and do action to advance sustainable fashion growth in Indonesia. We are pleased to have you scan the QR code that's shown on the screen. You can scan, and then you will find the feedback form that we hope we can hear from you about what's next we can improve on the next event. And if you want today's presentation, just contact RTL and we will share it to you for today's material. I'm Irene, signing out, and see you on the next event of Rantai Tekstil Lestari. Thank you.